So now that you've got a few tiles dropped down in position, what you want to do next is grab some tile spacers, start spacing these out properly. I'm using 1/8 inch spacers. I usually use 1/4 inch spacers, but given the fact that this is like a wood grain type of looking tile, and it's supposed to look like a wood floor once it's installed, I want to keep a nice tight grout line with this style of wood here. Or with the style of tile, I should say, not wood. So yeah, get some tile spacers in here. Make sure everything's spaced out properly. And then from here, what you're going to do is take a level and maybe a mallet, a rubber mallet, and kind of put the level over top of it and make sure everything's smushed down at the same level. Because what you don't want is, you know, one tile to be higher than the other, and it creates like a ridge. Because then when you go to slide furniture over it and stuff, you know, you could end up damaging the tile, nicking the tile, and then it just looks like crap when that happens. So, that's pretty much it. Just make your way around the floor, dropping down tiles, making sure everything's spaced out. After you put down a few tiles like this, a handful of tiles, like I said, stop, get your spacers in there. And in this case, I'm going to grab my square, make sure everything's squared up really good, because that's going to be really important later on. Actually, I probably should have done this before I put the spacers in. Well, it's good to do it with the spacers in. So yeah, there you go. Make sure everything's squared out, make sure everything's got good spacers. As you're going around, make sure you knock down this extra mortar that's kind of hanging out along the edge. And just make your way around the floor, and that's how you put down tile. Pretty easy. I'll show you the end result when I'm all done. So as you can see, I have all my whole floor tiles put down all the way around the room. The next step is to do my edges. And the way I do that is I essentially just measure how long I need it to be. So for example here, I measured from this distance to where it contacts the wall at that proper angle. In this case it's 13 inches. Then I come over here and measure 13 inches from that edge to that edge. And then I cut it with a tile wet saw, which I have here. I got at Home Depot for about $100. So that's what you do, is just go around and cut your pieces. If you've laid out your tile properly and had it the same distance from the wall and everything should be just the right distance. But given the fact that, you know, stuff happens and stuff might shift a little bit, or your measurements may have not been exact on or whatever, I measure each individual piece before cutting it. So I'm going to do that. I cut all my pieces at once, lay them down where they need to go, and then bring them to the tile saw, cut them, put them back down, mix up mortar, and I can put it all down at one time. That's how I prefer to do it. With this pattern, once again, the herringbone is going to be a little bit difficult. I'm going to have to cut a lot of pieces. If I would have done a square floor pattern or one of the offset patterns, I would not have to cut anywhere near as much tile. So I'm going to spend quite a while cutting it. But I like the way this herringbone pattern is looking. It definitely gives the room a different look. And I think it's going to look really good. So I feel like it's worth it. Another thing to note is that I do not have a baseboard down yet, so I don't have to get quite right up next to the wall. I can have a little bit of a gap there, but you don't want it to be more than about 1/4 inch or so, because the baseboard's only so thick. I think it's about 1/2 inch. So yeah, I've got a little wiggle room there, but not much. So I'm going to start cutting tile pieces, lay those down, and show you what it looks like when I'm all done. So as you can see, I've got all my whole tile, or all the tile rather, down on the floor. It's ready to be cleaned up and grouted. Now, the reason why I say cleaned up is I'm going to take some water in this rag here, and you can see there's spots where I got mortar on stuff that I shouldn't have got it on, and then spots, on the tile where I plop mortar down, like for example right here. You can see it's kind of stuck to it. If you just grab some water and an old rag and just kind of wipe it really good, it'll come right up. So that's what you want to do now, is go around the whole room, looking at everything really good, making sure that you get all that mortar and crap out of the way. If there's any mortar squeezing up between the cracks, this isn't too bad, but you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Just kind of rub it a little bit and it'll clean up real good. You want the towel to be nice and clean at this point, get everything off the floor, little bits of water that are hanging around like this. You want to get rid of all that stuff, give it a good sweeping, and mix up your grout. Go ahead and put that down. Now I like to mix my grout pretty thin for two reasons. One, it flows down into the cracks easier, and two, as you're pushing the grout down between the your mortar joints there, what's going to happen is eventually it's going to start to dry out, and then it's going to get really hard to work with when it's really thick. So I like to mix it really thin. That way it's just easier to work with. So that's what I'm going to do is clean my floor up, mix my grout, and then I'll show you how to put that in real quick.